What is up, everybody? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast. Guys, I am so excited to be here with my guest today. This dude not only comes from another continent, but he is an absolute rock star. Seriously, my guy, he is so humble. He's so kind. He is so genuine. He is going to share some amazing stories with us today, and I just cannot wait to get into it. So, a couple of things before I introduce my amazing guest. First, guys, I want you to be thinking of somebody that you know can benefit from this podcast, and I invite you to share it with them. Please do that because it's not only going to bless the lives of everyone who listens to the show, but it's going to bless your life as well, because service is seriously one of the best attributes that I believe you can personally have. So please serve those people and bless them. I invite you to do so. I also invite you to like and subscribe to the podcast. Leave me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on, or subscribe to the channel so that way you can get updated on all of the amazing stories of resilience that I'm sharing every single Friday. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to bring on my amazing guest. My guest hails again from a different continent. He's going to have to remind me which one he comes from, but it's definitely not the USA. His accent is totally awesome. So I'm really excited about this. Guys, my guest is someone who has struggled with depression, who has struggled with anxiety, and he has worked tirelessly to find resilience and to find growth from that. And because of that, he has started his own podcast, the Borderline Podcast, which focuses on depression and anxiety and all of the tools and skills that can benefit from it. So without further ado, my man, the myth, and the legend, Andrew Willox, if I said that right. Andrew, how are you
Yeah.
doing today?
Tell you what, you pronounce it better than the Scottish. Put it that way. Thank you. I'm great, Jason. Thank you so much for having me on and for the introduction. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Dude, my pleasure, man. So happy. So you're from Scotland. Are you currently in Scotland?
Yeah. So I'm a tiny little village called Eyemouth.
Okay.
We're just in the Scottish border, 6 miles, which 9 kilometers, I would say, is England just across the border. So that's why the accent's a little bit Scottish, considerably more English as well.
That's cool, dude. That's super cool. Well, dude, yeah, thank you again so much for coming on. I know it's about 8 o'clock where you're at, so it's a little bit later. The day is winding down, but again, I'm genuinely thankful.
No, totally. Yeah,
Dude,
no. And I really appreciate you inviting me on.
yeah, dude, I'm grateful that we were able to connect. I love the internet for that reason alone. So
100%.
so Andrew, bro, give us some cookie cutter answers as to who you are and what you do so we can all get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, so I'm what I describe myself as an average Joe. I am your typical work Monday to Friday, have a wife, have a load of cats and dogs. I have a, modern class kind of type of lifestyle. I don't have any vanity. I'm very mediocre in my approach to life and just kind of soft. But, I work as in the food industry, which, like I described to you before, isn't very exciting. But I'm blessed to be able to do a podcast now and reach out to the likes of yourselves and whatnot,
Well,
and have a platform to promote good mental health.
I love it. And I think that's so cool that you describe yourself as the average Joe, because while there is a lot of vanity out there in the world, most people connect with that feeling of being an average Joe.
Yeah, 100%. I think from the mental health point of view as well, and this is taking nothing against, more recognized podcasts and platforms and whatnot. But I think we hear a lot of like the mental health from the upper class, and I find that's really hard for people like me to connect with in a way because there is always that stigma. And I know mental health obviously affects absolutely everybody. I appreciate that, but that distinction in class can sometimes be a really hard breaking barrier to step across to really connect in that person's struggle. So I always think it's really important just to talk to, you know, average Joe, like-minded people that are just, happy to promote mental health and reduce some stigmas in some sort of way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Andrew. What is like, I know in America, there's a lot of stigmas on mental health and the growing epidemic of it. What's it kind of like over in Scotland?
It's very hard to judge. We're waking up definitely as a country. There is slowly more help becoming available, and a lot of that is through charity. I still think our government system is terrible at recognizing mental health. We've got a totally outdated mental health bill. That year on year they say that's going to pass and get updated, but never does. So that's the government's approach to mental health, sadly. But we're really lucky in the fact that I always think Scotland, especially, we're a very close nation. We're a very humble nation, and that togetherness, we can speak in an openness that I don't think a lot of other cultures quite understand.
Mhm.
So we're really fortunate in a way that there is quite a big openness aspect. But again, you have to tread carefully because there is still that kind of old guard, old school approach from some people that it's, it's all in your head and they can't quite figure out, well, why can't they do that? Why can't they do that? And obviously people like me and you know exactly why we can't do some things. So there is that missing link still, but slowly that gap is shortening.
Yeah. Would you say that you and kind of your generation are some of the first people to start to open up? Like, were your parents the people that were kind of the more like, don't see, don't feel, don't heal? Just, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I'd definitely agree with that. I would say for me, my mental health journey started in around about 2000, my serious kind of mental health journey started in around about 2008. And I remember back then, even your Google searches would never turn up as much information as it does now. My parents, my mom especially, I've been, she's my absolute rock. I can be very, very open to her. So she's a nurse, so she completely understands. She's a brilliant person that I connected with daily. And I'm very, very, very lucky. So I would say, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I would say our generation is the one that's maybe orchestrating this change. And what's happening now is that we're seeing the older generation now attach onto that and become part of that as well. So that's really special as well because you're getting people that obviously didn't think that they could talk out in the past generations, but are now getting that availability to do so, and that's a massive life changer for them.
And I love that view that you have. That's one I haven't heard before. So thank you for that. And when I ask these questions, I hope for those people listening that I mean no disrespect to the older generation. I fully and 100% believe you were doing the absolute best that you could with what you had. And I think that is a true testament of resilience as well. Yeah. So Andrew, dude, thanks so much for sharing all that you have
Yeah.
already. I would love for you to take us back to a young you and share with us some of the first times that you noticed you were struggling with your mental health.
Yeah, well, I had a really nice upbringing. I was very fortunate. My parents separated at a young age, but I think my mum, like I said, is such a strong character, such a strong rock. She kind of imparted almost like a safeguard on me and my sister at a very young age that we could almost kind of push away kind of negative feeling. Even now, when I think back to my childhood, most of it's just positive memories. It's almost like I blocked out quite a bit of the negative. So, but I think when I was a teenager, we're going through hormonal changes. But I definitely felt then there was a kind of decline, a depressive kind of nature in my mental behavior, how I was thinking about the world. Very early suicidal thoughts, I recognized back then as a teenager, but nothing that would ever go into the ideation. But I was a very happy person. I've always been a very, very happy person. I've been able to front my mental health. We're the best poker players on the planet. We can bluff anybody off. Yeah, so I think like my childhood was fine for me. The turning point in my mental health was actually my 20s. I think I'd had a turning point in my teenage years where I really wanted to change and really wanted to become the best that I could be. And I loved animals and I really wanted to have a career in animals. So I studied really hard and I managed to change all my grades around and got accepted into college. Done a degree in animal care and animal biology and ended up dropping out with uni, just after my third year. I'd moved back home. I'd broken up with my girlfriend of a couple of years as well. Moved out of the city Edinburgh back to Eyemouth, which is culturally quite different. Tiny little seaside village out to the capital city. So it was a massive lifestyle change. And like I say, I was in a job that I hated, absolutely resented every single morning. And I recognize now that my depression definitely fed off that, and that manifested into an anxiety. And all of a sudden, I mean, I was living a really nice life. Mental health was never an issue to me, like literally never. Yes, I had these depressing thoughts every now and then, but nothing to be alarmed about whatsoever. I would thought. And then all of a sudden, I was actually up at my local golf club one night, and I went to get out my chair, and I couldn't. And I still, I can't explain that feeling of just wanting to move, and my body just said, "No, you're not." And that created obviously a lot of that panic that sets in, that first anxiety feeling. And I went to move again, and I still wouldn't move, and it took maybe 4 or 5 seconds, a couple of the big deep breath to think, come on, you can do this. And up I went. And I remember walking and I remember feeling so disorientated and so unnatural and unlike me. And that was my very first glimpse of anxiety and anxiety attacks and social anxiety. And from there, it just spiraled and just went from worse to worse. But I masked it incredibly well with alcohol. I had a party lifestyle in college, and I enjoyed my teens and my early 20s, tremendously, and I don't regret any of that. But from a very young age, that culture and shift of behavior that it was okay to drink just carried on, and that's how I masked my anxiety, and that's how I got past any issue that I would have. Social gatherings was fine, but I would have to plan out where, when, and where I was going to be drinking. I developed this weird physical neck twitch whenever I locked eye contact on with somebody. Just like it was a horrible social anxiety trigger. For some reason, developed an almost phobia of going to the hairdressers. Now I still went to the hairdressers, but for some reason, and I've no idea why, even me now thinking about phoning up that hairdresser number, it gives me, I can feel it in my chest starting to bubble up, and I've no idea why that is. And it's still something that I'm a lot better with now. As I go down once a month, but I'd really prefer not to. That's still the one that sticks. So yeah, my early mental health was predominantly in my 20s, but I didn't deal with that very well. I didn't seek help. I was very confused. I was very scared. I wasn't too sure. Like I said at the start, when you done these Google searches back in the late noughties, 2010 sort of time, yeah, you got your normal anxiety relief, your symptoms, but nothing made sense to me of what I was experiencing. It was all very new and nothing quite related to that. And I went through stages then of obviously really super high tension anxiety, to the mental fatigue and burnout, to them being depressed, quite easily. But like I've said, drink was the ultimate stimulant to pick me up, and you'd work hard, you'd get to the Friday, and that would just be a complete and utter blowout that would carry on during the week sometimes as well. And from there, for most of my 20s, that is how I lived, just slowly abusing my body, I guess, into a mental health submission.
Yeah, dude, that makes a lot of sense. And thank you for sharing all that you did.
No,
So I love how unique your story is, right? Because it's yours. And I love that you're at a place in your life that you can own all of that now. And I think that's so important. I think it's so important that you
yeah.
can own that stuff. And I do have a couple of questions about your story. So at one point you had mentioned that you were really happy, but you also were feeling some suicidal thoughts. What was that like for you to have such duality?
uh, it's odd, and it's still, like I say, my mental health journey, I like to think is 80% recovered. I still deal with that issue today, but not anywhere near as serious as it used to be. But it's very hard. It's very complex to understand, because you shouldn't be thinking that. There is that little element of natural anxiety that we all have that says, no, you shouldn't be thinking of death. Why are you thinking of death? And why is that an interest of your subconscious and of your brain? And when you are happy, and when you do front it, and when you are genuinely happy as well, and those thoughts creep in out of nowhere, it can catch you completely off guard. And that's the stimulant of trigger after trigger. And certainly something that I felt, that I was very aware that when the suicidal thought appeared in my head, I knew exactly what I was thinking, and I knew it was negative. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't get rid of it. And luckily at a young age, it didn't manifest into any sort of ideation, because I'm not too sure how I would have coped with that, to be honest.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm really grateful you're willing to share that too. I think all of that is so true and it's so applicable. So
Yeah.
thank you. My other question for you, your depression, I know you said that it's kind of what stemmed your anxiety as well, and you used a lot of stuff to cope with it. How did your depression all kind of start? Was there like a moment? Was there a culmination of things? Was there an event?
I would say definitely, the culmination of moving back home was just a massive shift, because for me, and I know nobody ever probably felt of me like that, I felt like a failure. Like I really genuinely just felt like I'd failed in my life ambition. And like I say, it was you know, my first real breakup and working long, tireless 12-hour days in a job that you just absolutely detest. And I was, you're working just week to week paycheck. The wage was terrible. You're just, as I say, you're going out at the weekend blowing it, and then you're surviving on pittance for the rest of the week. So, and that cultural lifestyle isn't healthy.
Right.
And I wouldn't say there was such a trigger, but that progression of not recognizing it, and to stop myself in my tracks and just say, well, hold on the brakes a second. You need to change an aspect of your life here, or things might change. I was never mature enough back then to have that approach, sadly. I'm very lucky that I do now. Put it that
which is
way.
which is all it's all the journey,
Yeah.
which is all the journey. So, and I know you also talked about like mental fatigue and burnout. Like what kind of led and what were the things that were going into your mental fatigue and burnout that you were doing?
So I'm a really bad ruminator. Or I used to be a incredibly bad rumination thoughts, and like I say, mostly negative. And I think when, especially with anxiety, when your brain's in such that high stimulated state, it's exhausting. And I don't think people quite appreciate how exhausting that is over time, because anxiety for some people like you and I, and many others, sadly, isn't just one event. It's not just being anxious for that one thing. It can be every single day. And unfortunately, it can be hour to hour of that day. And when you're leading that life, and like you say, you cope and you put on the front, that's tiring. Along with this mental fatigue that you're stimulating these negative thoughts, you're trying to focus on positive, something your brain's almost attacking you in a sense, and it's that is completely draining. And that is for me one of the hardest aspects of mental health that people don't quite understand is how physically taxing it is on your body over time, especially.
Yeah, it really does. It compounds. It
Yeah,
compounds quite aggressively. And
massively.
I know we've kind of been dancing around it, but I'd love to bring in the question about the hero's journey. So for those just getting into the realm of mental health, and for those listening to the podcast for the first time, the hero's or the heroine's journey is essentially an extreme moment or a pivotal trial that someone had to go through that ultimately helped them become better. So, Andrew, again, I know we've been talking about it kind of roundabout way, but can you please tell us about an extreme moment or a pivotal trial you had to
Yeah,
go through?
yeah. So like I say, my mental health wasn't in a very good state all through my 20s. Although I did start seeking help, I went onto medication. I've been in and out of different types of therapy. Your usual, your CBT, breathing therapy, a little bit talk therapy. Nothing really seemed to help me that massively. It just seemed to mute it ever so slightly. Like I think my behavior changed ever so slightly, but I was still very conscious of all the negative thoughts going through my head. And like I say, that's exhausting over time. And in my 30s, I just took a big decline. And the alcohol that I was using wasn't helping anymore. So that was getting used even more. You start smoking cannabis. It's just eating unhealthy, energy drinks to stimulate yourself every single day. It's not a healthy lifestyle. And at the start of 2023, I'm a big gym goer. I stupidly got into doing steroids at a young, like completely uneducated. It's one of the biggest regrets of my life. I have nothing against people that uses. It's something that I obviously avoid now for the rest of my life, and that had a big impact on me. The turn of 2022 to 2023, I just got really depressed really fast, and in January 2023, I was out for a meal with my parents. Now I suffer with social anxiety greatly, a lot better now ever since these events. And I was out for a meal, and quite often after I've had a meal, for some reason, my social anxiety kicks in and I just vomit that meal straight back up. And I'm really, really, really sick then. And that happened. We were out in a village just a couple of kilometers away from where I stay. And it was ongoing, and it was terrible. And I had to leave early. It was the worst it had ever been. Got a taxi back home. And I was up all night, consistently making myself sick because it felt like this horrible pain in my stomach of anxiety and depression. I can't describe how horrible it was. And it lasted for around about 28 hours. And then it shifted, it went away. I went to work on the Monday, and about 3 hours into my shift on Monday, it came back out of nowhere. And for about a week, I was rooted to the toilet, just constantly making myself sick. And like I say, it wasn't getting rid of the feeling, but I just couldn't stop. I was just impulsed to keep on, making myself sick to try and relieve myself of these symptoms. My head was a mess. Insomnia was terrible, and it was just a horrible time. And I knew what was happening to me. I knew it was poor mental health. I knew it was a severe depressive bout that I was going for, a severe anxiety attack. But I just played it off as food poisoning because that's what I was doing. That was also my symptoms as well. And again, as soon as I started feeling better, I was straight back on. I remember by the end of that week, I was straight back onto drinking alcohol. I mean, how unhealthy is that? You're sick probably around 400 times in a week, and then you're way lining your stomach with alcohol. But it just wasn't healthy, and again that went on for a couple of months. Now I was quite taken back when we had our little chat before we went on, and you said that you had this massive shift around your birthday. My birthday's May 27th. I think it was the 5th of May. It was around about the 5th of May. No, sorry, it was April 22nd, which is that's odd. It's coming up to a year. And I was actually across at my mum's house looking after one of their dogs, and I was supposed to stay the night. Me and my wife was going to stay the night, and I'd been drinking a couple of beers, and I hadn't felt right that week. All that week, there was just something not right, and I was drinking excessively heavily, more than what I do. Like every single night, I was going out buying a couple of cans, drink it. There was just something not right going on inside of me, but I just ignored it. I just played it down. And on that Saturday, I went down to have a cigarette and to open another beer, and again, I just started being sick, and I knew exactly what was happening to me. And I was shaking. I was almost in a fit like state. Really, really, really scared. I genuinely thought I was dying. So I had like anxiety attacks, and I went upstairs to my wife, and I don't know why I went and ran myself a bath. I went and sat in the bath, and it just immediately it just felt so nice and comforting. It just took that feeling of anxiety away. It just lifted it, and I felt really good. And I got out of the bath, and then I went back upstairs to my wife, said, I'm feeling better and that. And then 20 minutes later, straight away again, back to the toilet, being sick. So I ended up coming back to my own house, and that was the start of a severe mental breakdown, is what I'd describe it. And I just got worse. That night, I didn't sleep at all, or for about 2 days, I didn't sleep initially. And the only thing that I could do was sit in a bath. Now that's crazy. That like I'm not joking here. I was lying in the bath for probably 17 or 18 hours a day, in almost kind of a self isolation state that I put myself in because I was just so exhausted and so done. This feeling in my stomach, this pain would not go away no matter what I did. My heart was constantly pounding. My heart rate was going up, from 75 up to 145, staying there for a while, coming back down, going back these just constant fits of anxiety, and it just took its toll on me mentally. I just became very, very, very exhausted with that, and it got probably around about to the middle of May, and that's when my first real. Now I've always, like I've said, I've always had suicidal thoughts, but this is the first time that I've ever had suicide ideation, and the two are completely different. I've never experienced how different they are, and all of a sudden there was this instant shift in my mental health to end it and to get rid of. I couldn't keep on living like this. I was exhausted. I wasn't sleeping, eating. I dropped just a stupid amount of weight really quickly. Yeah, I couldn't consume anything. Nothing would stay down. It was horrible, and I was contemplating suicide on a different level. That's a really hard concept for anybody to comprehend and understand. It was becoming a very real, constant message in my head, and the scariest thing about that, it was the soothing message in my head. The fear aspect, like I talked before, where you know that you're feeling of something negative and you shouldn't be thinking like that. It felt completely acceptable to be feeling the way that I did. I was pissed off. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this.
Yeah, that's not a swear. You're good.
I was drained. I was completely ruined. I was empty, completely empty. And all of a sudden I started meditating, and that kind of helped me a little bit initially. And I kind of had a little bit of grip back on my life, a little bit of fight in my stomach again. And I focused on that really, really hard. And I got back to work. I changed really quickly. There was this instant change in me, and I felt really, really, really good. But I knew I wasn't out the. I can't explain it. I just knew I wasn't out the woods. Mentally, there was something still not quite right up there, balancing the book, so to speak. And what would have been my 27th birthday, which like I say, I found quite odd when you're exchanging your story earlier with me. The suicide ideation reached the peak of that, and I don't know how this happened. I don't understand it. I still don't understand it to this day. I went to bed on the 26th of May, absolutely fine, and I woke up around about 2 a.m. on my birthday, crying my eyes out, shaking. That feeling was back. I was incredibly scared, and it was very odd because I knew what I was scared of, and I knew that I'd almost accepted in my head that the minute that this feeling was going to come back, that I was going to commit suicide. I couldn't go back to that 3.5 weeks or 4 weeks of just horrible. So the day went on, and my wife got up, and I talked to her. My wife's excellent. Well, I absolutely love my wife to bits, obviously, and I'm really fortunate to have somebody that I can connect with so well with. And she, we talked it out, and she calmed me down, and everything was good. I went for a nap, and I felt really good again. And then I woke back up in the afternoon, and straight away the thought was back, and I actually ended up running out the house. Got in the car, drove across the cliffs, and got really close. Got really, really close. And the scariest aspect is there was no fear. There was that fear had gone out. I'd accepted. Now the really weird piece about this is before this, I'm completely agnostic. I respect anybody's religion and views. I've never thought of myself as a spiritual person per se. I've always liked the idea of spirituality. I've never quite understood spirituality, and it was just a man out walking his dog. Now, but the sunlight was behind him, and that figure and the symbolism behind that when I was stood out there on that near the cliff had an instant effect on me that there was hope in this. I don't know. I can't explain it. I'd like to say it's something that I never want to understand it because it's so special.
Yeah.
And it was just so unique. And I got back in the car and I put a song on that I discovered. It's a song called Struggle by the Lathams. They're an English band. It's on about mental health and losing loved ones to mental health. And I started singing that on the way home, and the tears started coming out of me, and that was the moment that I thought, you're going to change, and this time you're going to commit to change. And my message to anybody in a hero's journey is commit to change. Commitment is one of it's a hard aspect for humans to grasp how hard you might need to commit sometimes to really change in your life. But when you've been down in the roughs and you have these moments and they make sense to you, and that's fine. It doesn't matter if they don't make sense to anybody else, but they make a little bit more sense to you, and they change your life. And from there was this bravery, like I spoke about at the start of the podcast, that my mum put the safeguard up at a very young age that almost seemed to be back, and this resilience and fight was back in my stomach, but it was bigger and bolder than it ever had been before. And all of a sudden, this shift in perspective of mental health entirely had changed to me, to the fact that I never want to go through that again, and I would never wish that on my worst enemy. And if we can educate people just a little bit on the subject, then it's a win. And that was the shift for me, and that is where I'm at now, and that's how we've crossed paths. Is when you become committed and passionate about mental health, you love the subject because it's so close to you. I'm very blessed to have that shift and have the journey that I've had. I don't regret my journey at all. Obviously, sitting in a bath for 18 hours it's not as hygienic as it sounds.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much
All right, no
for
problem.
sharing your vulnerable story. It's I don't even want to ask questions about it. I feel like you so beautifully laid out the story
No,
for
no
everyone.
problem.
There's nothing more we need to know. You're an
No,
amazing
thank you.
person.
Thank you so much.
So
Cheers.
you see this God wink is what I would call it, right? Of this
Yeah.
random man walking his dog with the perfect halo behind him, and you commit to this change. So what coping skills did you develop because like after that, and how have
Okay.
they evolved up to this point?
So yeah, so like I said, when you're stuck in a bath, you get pretty bored, and all I was wanting to do was to make myself feel better. And I found a love of meditation like I've never found before. And like I say, this the spiritual change connected with that in a way that I feel that when I meditate and when I slow my mind down and slow my body down, I can go back to some of the most horrible moments that I've felt, but I can connect with them and I can understand them fractionally more than before. And to do that allows me to cope with the stresses that I feel now. I still have my bad days. We all still have our really bad days sometimes, but I'm built different now, and that's a lot of that comes down to meditation. I'm so thankful for that, and to learn the techniques of meditation is just absolutely it infuse anybody to go and try some sort of meditation or breathing exercises or anything like say spiritual that you feel that you can connect with someone or something. I think it's a strong suit to have in your arsenal. The gym for me, like I say, I've always been a quite from my 20s. I think when I moved back from university and dropped out university, I felt, like I say, I felt like quite a failure, and from that kind of age, I really wanted to change the way I looked. I wanted to be the big buff guy, So I started hitting the gym. I've never been big, but I've loved it, and that's something that for anxiety especially. I find that the gym's a lovely anxiety release. For me, I've noticed that when I'm depressed, it doesn't quite hit me as much because I just don't have that energy, the want. But anxiety, it really does feel like you get that little win over yourself, which is crucially important when dealing with anxiety. And music, music is I've always been into music. I've played music from a young age, and I stopped playing music from when I was like 20, I think, and I've only just in the last half year got back into that. I would say I've got quite a good songwriting ability, and so that to me is my own little way that I can almost write these messages to myself that I understand. What I am starting to do is I'm not a very good singer. I'm trying to learn how to sing so I can play these songs that I write so then people understand why they've been written and then maybe they can relate to why I've said that was such a bad day or why this was such a good day or whatever's been going on in my head at that time and I think that's really interesting. Mental health is that we can understand each other a lot better about mental health too. It's a brilliant subject. So like I say, to be able to come in and speak openly is the strongest coping mechanism because this is talk therapy at the end of the day as well.
Right.
And we're so lucky to be in this position.
Yeah, what a
And
blessing. What a
yeah,
gift.
we can impart that little bit of change, like you said at the start of the podcast, just to if we can help that little bit, that's a brilliant coping mechanism in my book.
Right.
Just to know that you can do that.
Yeah, helping others, right? The
Yeah,
service. I remember watching a short one time with Will Smith on it. And he said that in it, he's like, I've done so many things. I've learned so many things, right, in my life. And he says, I've done things that should make me happy and they haven't. And the one thing he said, and Will Smith, right? So Will
yeah,
Smith
yeah,
said, the one thing that makes me feel the best is serving other people. And
yeah.
I feel like this podcast, your podcast, right, is all about serving other people, helping other people. And there's no greater feeling.
Oh, absolutely agree. I totally agree with that. I think when you there's a massive difference between when you have to help other people and when you want to help other people. And when people want to help other people, that's where you get the best advice and the best information because it's real and true to that person. So
Right.
totally agree with you. The more that
Yeah.
people can converse, the better.
Yeah, and I love that you have multiple coping skills, right? The meditation, the gym, the music. I think all are so powerful, and they're ones that I actually use quite a bit in my own recovery journey. And the one question I do have about all of this is meditation. What is meditation to you?
Right. Okay. So I can define this answer in two different ways. So I would say meditation to anybody is anything that you enjoy so deeply that connects you with that inner sense of well-being that only you really understand that effect that it has on you. You can say how good it is and you can, preach as much as you love meditation, but that feeling that you have from your own meditation will never be greater. And meditation for me especially, in an ironic way, is I go back to the bath, where I had such a horrible time. I put my music in, I go through my breathing exercises. So the true meditation sense of, maybe from anywhere from 10 to 40 minutes, typically, depending on how I'm feeling. If I'm in that zone and I just want to flow, then I'll just flow. There's no better feeling than having a connective energy and feeling that sense of well-being in yourself. Like self-nourishment's one of our greatest aspects of being a human. So we're lucky to feel that, and it's great to feel that way. Like I say, when you've had horrible times and you get that sense of relief, um, meditation is just brilliant. So to answer your question, yeah, anything, but as long as you can connect with yourself, that's true meditation for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I resonate with that a lot because so one thing I truly love is smoking meat. It's a really big hobby of mine.
Wow, yeah,
And to be able just to really focus on the meat and the product and everything is a form of meditation, right? Because it makes me
yeah,
feel so good. And
yeah.
it's
I
that
totally
singular
agree.
focus. Yeah. So
Um,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say I was just going to touch onto that. Like gardening for me is something that I think is meditation as well. But I was just agreeing with what you're saying. A lot
Yeah.
of people would think, "What, really? But you're active?" No, no, I'm becoming soothed.
Exactly. Exactly. It's that singular focus on something that allows
Yeah,
you to feel good about yourself, right? That
yeah.
mastery in a sense. So Andrew, you've obviously been through so much and found so much resilience, and I can tell, and I know the viewers can tell that you are so much better than where you were at in those
Mhm.
that terrible month and in your 20s and stuff. Looking back at everything you've been through, what can you appreciate about your journey up to this point?
I would have never. It's weird that it's coming up, like I say, to a year to the anniversary, because I would have laughed in anybody's face had they said I would have been doing this in a year's time. And if the sacrifice of what I've had to go through puts me to where I am just now, then there hasn't been a wasted day in my journey. And in a horrible way, I'm thankful for some of the things that have happened to me, because to me, I can understand things in a way that I don't think a lot of other people quite understand. And then to have the ability to be so open about it and converse about it and to potentially help guide people through some of their darkest hours, I would never regret a single day off of that. That's that should be a natural feeling that I hope most of us feel. So you know, yes, there's been some horrible days. I'm thankful for the aspects that, like I say, I can talk to people in a way that we can connect in a way that we mutually can respect one another straight away, and that pain, and you can relate to that pain, but you can also relate to that happiness as well. And it's good to see people smile, and it's great to have these conversations. So I'm in an essence, I'm just really thankful for my entire journey to where it's brought me to today. I hope that the future holds more, more hidden treasures. I don't want to know what the future's like, because I'm enjoying the ride right now. And like I say, if the sacrifice is there, then it's been worth it anyway.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And Andrew, my last question for you, for those just getting into the realm of mental health, what advice do you have for those people?
Okay, so it's really important that we get these messages right that people relate to. And the first obvious one that we know is very cliche is know that you're not alone. There are many of us out there that are feeling this way and that also feel incredibly isolated and alone. And that's a horrible irony about mental health, is that there's so many of us that suffer from it, yet we feel so isolated and alone. And but respect it and respect that aspect of your life. And like I said, try and commit and impart a little bit of change in your life, that when you feel that happiness, that spark, that ignition in your belly, that little sense of joy, hold on to that feeling and let that resonate, and really don't always accept what is happening to you. It's horrible. Like it is horrible. Let's not play it down. But it can be a lot less scary if you talk to people and you do connect with people, because once you find that you're not alone in this, it becomes so much easier to deal with. And once you do start to deal with it, you'll improve you'll improve your life like you never actually believed that you could improve your life, and you become somebody that you never thought that you could become. So never feel that you're going to get lost in your mental health journey. Always know that there is going to be support. It might feel like you don't have that support, but once you take that brave step, and you reach out, you commit to some little changes in your aspects of your life that you may have to, that they'll all be worth it. As I say, the fruits of the labor of the hard work of mental health show tremendously at the other side. And I'm a Liverpool football fan. For anybody, I don't know if you know who they are, and we have the song "You'll Never Walk Alone," and the line for that is at the end of the at the end of the storm there's a golden sky, and you'll never walk alone. And that's something that resonates with me, because that, in a nutshell, is mental health to me. And I think that's a message that I like to. That's my strongest message, is that you know just please reach out and don't suffer in silence. And you will start to change your life, and it won't be as scary as what it might feel just now, and it does get better. The storm really does pass.
I love that. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Andrew.
no
And
problem.
thank you for taking time out of your
Oh, I
busy
appreciate it.
schedule to come here and share your beautiful, vulnerable story with us. I know that I have such a deeper appreciation for you. And I know that the audience and these people who have listened just love you and
Thank you.
really
Thank
resonate with what you've shared and feel empowered because of you. So thank you. Thank you so
you.
much. So Andrew, before we let you go, I want to know about your podcast. Tell us about the Borderline podcast.
Yeah, so this is where the journey changes for me. And like I say, I had a pretty rough time, and I got a little bit better. I committed to change. I got myself back into the gym that I hadn't stepped in in about 16 weeks or so. And I was ready to start eating again, and I was ready to start smiling and enjoying my life again. We were actually approaching the busiest schedule of our year, which is the summer harvest, and it was my most enjoyable summer harvest because I was so happy just to be back at work. But there was still aspects of me that I struggled with. I still had my anxiety, and I still had some really dark days, although I was a lot better. And I started an anxiety page on Instagram. It's called, pardon me, Andrew's Anxiety Adventure. Very alliteration. I started that, like I say, I had a shift in perspective that it was time to try and educate and try and raise awareness for this. Like I'd never really, I've always really been very passionate about mental health, but this really, obviously, changed the gears. And from that, I started talking to people. People were reaching out, and we were connecting. And one of my friends that I hadn't spoken to a while, who had actually, given me the encouragement just to go and do that Instagram page, suggested a podcast. And I loved the idea. I thought, yeah, okay. I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I have never thought of anything like this in my life before. Like I say, I've got a little bit of background in music, but podcasting. So I committed to that, and we started the Borderline podcast in September 2023. We're still in a very young age, but we're getting there. And some of the messages and support that I've had back, like I said, fruits of your labor, has been life changing for me, because it helps me know that I'm not alone as well. And these guests that I have on and I speak to, and we converse and we talk about it, and there always seems to be this relation, this like say your birthday and my birthday, and these little odd little aspects to our lives that are uniquely the same but so different, that have now connected us, is it's just so exciting. So the Borderline podcast, it's new, it's my baby, it's my hobby, but we're growing, and I'm enjoying the ride. I'm really enjoying the ride.
That's awesome. And of course, I will make sure to put links in the comment section of the Borderline podcast. So if those who are listening are interested in going and checking it out, they can. Just stay tuned, because I know I'm going to be on his podcast as well. So I'm really
Yes, you
excited about that. It's going to be a lot of
are.
fun. So again, Andrew, last time, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really, really appreciate your time.
Man, I really appreciate you inviting me on. Honestly, man, it's been a brilliant talk, and I can't wait to have you back on for the return leg. When all the Scottish people get to hear the American accent.
There we go. I'll be the one with the accent at that point. But awesome. Well, everyone, for those listening up to this point, thank you so much for joining in today. I truly, truly appreciate your continual support in the podcast. If you're not already a part of the Wellness Center tribe, please make sure to like and subscribe to whatever platform you currently listen to. If you haven't, give us a 5-star review or a thumbs up just to let us know we're doing a good job. If you want to come on the podcast, also know that no name is too big and no story is too small. If you do have a story, I want to share it all, please contact me at chase@thewellnesscenter.life. If you want to know more about what I do on a day-to-day basis, check out thewellnesscenter.life, where red light therapy recalibrates every single cell in your body, one session at a time. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace out.